Welcome to week 11 of the Gambling Show. I'm here with Yanni. How's it going, man?
What's up, dude?
Just watched Jake Paul and Mike Tyson go the distance. I don't know about you guys, but if you can't knock out a 58-year-old, I don't think you're very good at boxing. Um, but anyways, we'll get into the week 10 recap, and I'll start first. It was a 2 and 3 week for me. The first one was the Bears Patriots over 38 and a half. That was a terrible bet from me. Listen, I think I was onto something with Drake May and the Patriots offense kind of being at least a middle of the road offense to maybe you could say a little bit below average. What I did not expect though was Caleb Williams and the Bears to be just absolutely unwatchably bad. The Bears have now gone like I believe it's 24 straight drives without a touchdown. That is the longest stretch of any team on the year. Everything looks broken in Chicago. The Patriots got 9 sacks on Caleb. The next closest sack total they had on the year was 3. They set the franchise record for sacks. Caleb's holding onto the ball too long. It's just a mess. They fired Shane Waldron. Bad bet on my end. Nothing to really do about that though. Next one was Falcons minus 3.5. This was a consensus of mine and Yanni's. They just outright lost to the Saints. I don't think there's anything that really makes sense about this game as to why we lost. Derek Carr threw a couple bombs. MVS had a 100-yard 2 touchdown game, which I mean, if you prognosticated that, that's great for you. I didn't see that going. I think what we can chalk this up to is maybe having a little bit more respect for the interim head coach's first game going forward. That's a trend that we recognized was on the board, and we happily threw it in the trash to fade the Saints team. I don't know. I don't
Yep.
really trust the Falcons. Maybe we should have had some more respect for that. The Redskins minus 2.5 was another consensus. We actually went 0-2 on consensus last week. That was the first time we did that all year. I'm going to leave that for Yanni though, because I already took one of ours. The Cardinals money line. This was probably my best bet of the week, and I didn't. I thought it was like I leaned Cardinals, but I thought it would be kind of close. It was clearly two different classes of team out there. The Jets are just screwed, man. Nothing looks right there. They can't do any. They're not good on offense. They're not good on defense anymore. They have talent at places, but it's not shining with the personnel group. I think it's probably a Rodgers problem. If I had to guess, I hate to see it with like one of my favorite players of all time in the NFL. Chico Kid, like hometown hero Rodgers, but looks bad, man. That being said, though, that was a money line bet that paid over 2-1, so I'm happy to take it on the record. And then the Dolphins plus 1.5. This was another one that I felt pretty good about. The Dolphins brought it home. They were leading almost the entire game. There were points where the Rams kind of got close. I believe they had 5 trips into deep Dolphins territory. They came away with 5 field goals. I don't think that the Rams typically that's a typical performance of theirs, but I think the Dolphins defense played pretty well, and I think the Rams offense just kind of has been struggling the past couple weeks. It's something I mentioned on the slides. I said, "Were you guys impressed by that win against the Seahawks?" I was not. I thought 20 points against them was not a very good sign, and you know, Dolphins took it to them on Monday night. So I closed out the week on 2 and 3. That was my first under 500 just on picks record since week 3. So 7 week run came to an end, but it was a good run. Lost a couple bucks on the week, but I'm still floating just a little under 6 units at $596.68. Season record falls to 28 and 22, but at the end of the day, we're still over 500. We're still in the green. That's what I'm looking for and looking to get back on track this week.
Yeah, so speaking of over 500 or in the green, I'm neither. And this week certainly did not help. It's funny. I'm like noticing that I've bet a few teams that clearly I just don't have a good read on this year. I really need to go back and figure out what's going on. I told you guys I was sitting there bragging, right, when I was at 60% to start the year. I am cold the last 3 weeks and I blew it, man. I've blown my whole lead, blown my good record. And I'm trying to go back and look, and I guess two of the teams that I clearly don't have a read on, really three of them, is I've lost multiple bets on the Vikings this year. I've lost multiple bets on the 49ers this year, and I've lost multiple bets on the Steelers this year. And those all came home this week when Sam Darnold had 3 turnovers in the red zone, blew my pick of 6.5. if one of those goes through, I think it's fine. But me and Ted have sort of had an ongoing discourse about what Sam Darnold is this year, and it's if I had listened to old Teddy Boy and maybe not taken that bet, I would not have lost the cover. I think it was a 5-point game. I think it was something weird, like 12-7 was the final score of that, with 3 turnovers in the red zone. So, uh, which one did you? Yeah, so you left the Steelers skins.
Mhm.
Steelers skins again. So I have multiple times this year bet against the Steelers just not quite being as good as the market says they are, and I'm not sure. I'm really not sure what to make of it. It's been a thing that we've liked to bash this year. We're going to get into it with another conversation this week, so I don't want to spoil it. But in this case, I don't know. I think I underestimated the Steelers, and certainly I wouldn't do that again. That would be stupid if we were doing it this week. And then the 49ers. The 49ers, frankly, I'm a huge Niners fan. Ted's a huge Niners fan. We go to playoff games every year. They, frankly, have just not had an impressive win this year. They have not. They have not had a quality win all season. And then they went in there and fought tooth and nail with the Bucks without Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Um, to me, 6.5, man, 7 points with CMC back was like free money. I can't believe that was what the game looked like. I don't know if it's more of a testament to the quality of the Bucks team or the lack of quality of the Niners team. I'm not sure, but I blew that one. The only one I got right was the Eagles -7. I'd like to pretend like that was some really smart call, but they're playing the ghost of the Dallas Cowboys, right? So I'm at -4 units on the year. I'm 25-25. I mean, still plenty of time to make it back. We're going to keep grinding, but I am definitely disappointed about my last month. It has been rough. At least Ted's been on fire. At least our consensus picks have been pretty good, but I'm pretty disappointed in how I've been doing here the last few weeks.
Yeah, plenty of time to turn it around. And I think for the 49ers, right? Like if your special teams cost you 16 points in a ball game, like what are you gonna do, right? Like the Niners outplayed the Bucks. They like outgained them 2-1. Like everything in that game said the Niners should have blown them out, but special teams, man, it's a problem.
I
Um,
forget what the number is this year. I think they said the Niners special teams is credited with swinging 38 points so far this season in their games.
really bad.
So yeah, man, when you're swinging four points a game, or actually they've only played 9 games, when you're swinging like 4.5 points a game, yeah, you're gonna lose games. Just lost their punter, by the way, best punter in the NFL, only bright spot on the team. Just lost him to IR.
Great, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Let's get to it, buddy. Let's get to it.
All right, week 11 picks, everyone. I'll start first. I'm rolling out a 3-leg parlay this week. Looking to just absolutely hammer it. Looking to take a big old lead here. But my single games this week are the Bills -2.5 against the Chiefs. I have the Buffalo Bills taking out the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs. Then I'm taking the Bengals money line against the Chargers on Sunday night. Then the 3-leg parlay, it's going to be the Rams -4.5, the Ravens -3. We're fading those Steelers, and the Texans -7.5 on Monday night against the Cowboys. If the parlay hits, that returns $680.70. Since it's a 3-legger, you start to see those jumps when you're hitting more legs like that. If the 2 single games hit, the other return is $403.24. Notice that because I'm taking the Bengals money line and giving away the point, I'm making over 2-1 on that. That's why that other return for 2 games is actually pretty good. On a 5-0 week, I would net $1,083.94. The ticket cost is only $300 because I'm taking one $100 3-leg parlay. And like I was saying before, profit and loss were just under 6 units and sitting at 28-22 on the season.
Yeah, so I am taking the Dolphins -7 against the Raiders, taking the Ravens -3 against the Steelers. Me and Ted are riding together on that. I am parlaying that with the Ravens Steelers under 48.5. The number felt a little big to me. Taking a little risky business and taking a dog in the Colts at +3.5 against the Jets. And then the Texans 7.5. Again, me and Ted are together on that. Parlay return 347, total return 580, or total other return 580, potential total return 928. I'm staking $400 or 4 units for 9.28 units on return. I'm down 4 units this year, and I'm 25-25.
Hey, 5-0 week gets you over 500 into 30-25. So let's aim for that.
There you go, man.
Oh yeah. And let's get into the game breakdowns. I'll start first. I got the Rams going into New England to play the Patriots. We're taking the Rams -4.5. The over/under on this game is 43.5 points. We got 65% of the money on the Rams against the spread and 65% of bets on the Rams against the spread. So an exact match to your dollars bet and tickets put in. So, but there's like general whale and public lean on the Rams here. Just 65% of people are taking the Rams with the points. So we'll start with the big four of the Rams, right? Matt Stafford, Kyron Williams, Cooper Kupp, and Puka Nakua. They're all healthy. They're all ready to go. And this offense is not the Chicago Bears offense, so they should have success here against what I would call a middle of the road Patriots defense. I think they're going to score some points. The Patriots are coming off a huge W last week against the Bears. I think their offense is improved with Drake May, but I'd still call them like a low to mid tier like offensive unit. So I don't think they're going to go out here and hang like 35 against the Rams, right? I think it's going to be like I think their total points will range in between like 15 to maybe 24, 25, right? And I that's a decent offensive output, but like when you have the Rams big four, I just don't see them being able to keep it within that 4.5 point margin. The Patriots, like I had mentioned earlier when I was doing the game breakdown, had 9 sacks last week against Caleb. So will they get to Stafford? I think this is like a really, really big point. Matt Stafford is one of the quickest quarterbacks to release the ball when he's in the pocket. He gets rid of it fast. A lot of the great quarterbacks in NFL history have been that way. You look at Tom Brady, you look at Peyton Manning, those guys, they were just absolutely elite at getting rid of the ball quickly. When you do that and you're on schedule, especially with Sean McVay drawing up plays, things are going according to plan, right? It allows these plays to develop. You get your quick hitters, and then that sets up deep shots down the field. Matt Stafford, he is an old guy, right? He doesn't have the type of legs like a Jaden Daniels or a Lamar Jackson do. So I think it's going to be really important for a banged up Rams line to keep him upright, at least to an extent. I think probably I called the Patriots pass rush like not a very good unit last week before they got 9 sacks. I don't think you get 9 sacks on anyone if you're a bad unit, right? So I think they're decent. So that'll be a matchup I'm watching. Is Stafford getting just crunched in the pocket, or is he able to stay in there and deliver the ball on time? Next one, two of Cooper Kupp and Puka Nakua is better than one Christian Gonzalez. Christian Gonzalez is a great corner. He's a lockdown corner, but the Rams are a team that had two alpha wide receivers, right? Christian Gonzalez can only guard one of them. I mean, like, I like Christian Gonzalez. I don't think that he's like Darrell Revis, for example, right? He's not just going to just completely lock people down and put them on an island. But if he's by far your best defensive player and you want to put him on the best receiver, who do you even put him on? I don't even know who the best receiver is for the Los Angeles Rams at this point in time. I love them both. I think that whoever the number two corner is like, on the Patriots is probably going to have trouble. Like, there's going to be someone open for Stafford, is really the main point here I'm trying to make. And finally, I'm calling this like a good buy low on the Rams, who just like had a disappointing loss on prime time on Monday night, and a sell high on the Patriots, who are coming off an emotional win. I think if these teams played each other last week, the line would be Rams -7. So I think the market probably, based on the two performances they saw, like it probably moved the line down pretty significantly here, right? So 4.5, I think, is a decent number. I need more than a field goal, but I think that by all accounts, right, this should be more than a field goal game. The Rams, if they can turn those 5 trips into Dolphins territory into a couple touchdowns here instead of field goals, I think they'll probably just be able to outscore the Patriots. Like, I like Drake May, don't get me wrong. I think he's a promising young quarterback. I think I'd like to think I'm one of his first fans in the NFL. I saw his first game and was like, oh man, this guy's doing stuff here. But I just don't think they have the dogs to hang in this one. I think Gerard Mayo is doing a good job with what he has, but I don't think it's going to be enough here against this kind of healthy Rams team, or at least healthy at the key spots. I'll take it -4.5. What do you think, Yanni?
I think I missed one, man. I always think you're so good at like talking, selling the pick. I think that's a great call. I think it's correct. I was like looking through, I was checking the recent numbers from the Patriots. They really have had problems putting up points this year, even with Drake May in there. And then, I would just say as a little side thing, so Puka Nakua had over a 40% first read target share last week. I would assume that Puka is going to draw the Christian matchup. If you guys are prop betters, maybe get a little cheeky with the Cooper Cup over on yards and the Cooper Cup over on receptions this week. I because I do think the Patriots will score enough points on a soft defense to force them to keep playing. That's really the only thing I was thinking about when you were talking. And beside that, I was thinking, God, I should have picked them. Yeah, dude, the talent difference is way too big. The Patriots aren't going to get 9 sacks again. I think that's a really good pick.
Yeah, for full transparency, right? I really liked the board this week, and this is my last game in. My number 6 one in. If I could bet 6, I would have gone with the Colts with Yanni too, but I'd like this one just a tinge more. So this one made the cut.
I think it's a good pick, man. I think it's a good call. Okay, Raiders and Dolphins. I'm really going to be boring on my analysis on this one. It's pretty straightforward to me, and apparently it is to the public as well. You have 80% of the dollars going on the Dolphins, 70% of the total bets. Slight whale lean, but really not anything impressive. When Tua's in the lineup, right? The Dolphins are a legitimate offense. They're hypothetically one of the best offenses in the NFL. I think losing Hunt really affected their O line. They have had horrible their yards before contact, their yards per carry, A-Chain's rushing efficiency, Mostert's, even Wright. Those guys are like tremendous athletes, and they have looked horrible running behind this line. So their offensive line's been super inefficient. I think that's been really the big factor in their offense not being what it was. But look, Tua's been out. Tyreek Hill's been injured. Tua does not look right to me. In the UFC, if you suffer a knockout concussion, if you get knocked out in the cage, they give you a 6-month no contact order, right? Boxing, I would assume, is similar because it's the state athletic commissions. I just wonder, man, I did not see that quick release game from Tua against the Rams, like where he's getting the ball out of his hands in 2 seconds and making those reads. I saw him holding the ball and taking sacks a lot. So I think there is like some mild cause for concern that this Dolphins offense isn't going to be what it used to be. But if you just want to play the numbers, Tyreek Hill and Waddle are two players that have been extremely productive over their careers, even eating off each other's plates, right? These are 1,000 and 1,500 yard receivers, right? And I think I'm betting a little bit that regression's going to hit here towards the end of the year, especially like for fantasy and Waddle. I was trying to buy them all week. And so to me, right, if regression is going to come, which it should, at least if they're going to get close to their annual averages, it should be coming here. This is the first week Tyreek is off the injury report. I think against the Raiders secondary, against one of the worst secondaries in the NFL, this is the week that we're going to see that. And then again, like I was saying with the previous matchup, look at the talent differences on these rosters. To me, you have Bowers and Myers. Bowers and Myers both seem to be. Bowers seems to be a potentially generational player. Myers is a well above average player. I think probably one of the more underrated receivers in football. They're great players, but when you look at the production allowed to the position, the Dolphins defense currently allows the eighth fewest. I guess it would be fantasy points is how I work that out. But they allow the eighth fewest in total production to tight ends and fifth fewest against wide receivers. They really stuff receivers and tight ends. Myers should draw the Jalen Ramsey matchup. Bowers is going to draw those safeties. It's just not a good matchup for him. And then their pass rush was pretty good. They were disrupting Matt Stafford last week. I think the Dolphins should be able to move the ball at will. And if they get up by 10 or 14 points, do we really trust the Raiders to be able to pass their way out of this? I don't think so. And don't forget the Antonio Pierce factor. I really hate to keep bashing on the guy. Great player. I loved watching him play football. I hate watching him coach football. Mike McDaniel, for whatever his flaws are, what do we always say about the Dolphins is they're can crushers. They will beat up bad teams. That's kind of what they do. I believe they play the Raiders last year. Who did they have their 50-point game? The Broncos last year.
Yeah, the Broncos they hung 70 on.
Yeah, but I want to say they beat the shit out of the Raiders too. I think I remember them doing that last year. Maybe I'm making that up. But they what they do is they beat up bad teams, right? And I think this is a bad team. I think they're going to come in here at home. I think Tua's and now 2 months almost removed from his concussion. First week Tyreek Hill's healthy. I'm taking the whole upswing with the team. I think A-Chain, much to Ted's chagrin, has a 20+ point fantasy week. Just all of it. Okay. Very happy to take the bet. Jonnu Smith has looked really good. I'm very happy all around. Coaching advantage, roster advantage at home. Very easy bet for me. Give me the Dolphins -7.
For the record, I do think A-Chain has a good one here. I think over 20 is probably a good bet for fantasy for him this week. The one thing I'll say about this, I think by all accounts, right, like the Dolphins just are in a very different spot with Tua in the lineup versus with him not in the lineup, right? I don't think there's a bigger difference in the NFL between Tua running your offense and Tim Boyle running your Mike McDaniel offense. The only thing that kind of weirds me out about this one is the Dolphins haven't had one of those like beat the shit out of an inferior team games this year. Before
Yeah.
last week, right? I think all of their games were within like 3 points when Tua was in, and then they only beat the Rams by like I think it was like 8 or something, right? So we haven't seen it yet, but I think this Raiders team is probably a good spot to lay that number, especially at home, right? They're not going to be. Miami's always nice out. Like if they were going to, I don't know, Green Bay or Kansas City and like the frigid temperatures, I think that maybe you could say, okay, well, their offense isn't going to do as well. I think they're going to be comfortable at home here in South Beach. Only need to beat the Raiders by a touchdown. I can see it. Unless Gardner Minshew has a career game. I love that fella, but I mean, when you're getting locked up, your number one wide receiver is getting locked up by Jalen Ramsey. Who else are they going to throw the ball to? Like Trey Tucker? Like I don't know, man. But I think you got a good one here. All right, this one, the first of our two consensus picks of the week, and I take so much pleasure in picking the Baltimore Ravens -3 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then Yanni also has the under on this game. But I'll just kind of talk about the ATS stuff, and then Yanni can get into why he likes the under. But yeah, the picks here are the Ravens -3 and the under. The over/under on the game is 48.5, which it's pretty high total. Only 32% of the money is on the Ravens against the spread, and 52% of money is on the under. And then 40% of bets are on the Ravens against the spread, and 52% of bets are on the under. So we're fading the public with this against the spread pick, and bettors can't really make up their mind about like the point total. But we're happy to fade the public at least against the spread in the spot. Like I said, it's one of our consensus picks. We were 0-2 last week, so we're looking to improve on that. And we're picking against a home divisional dog. We are not afraid. We are not a slave to the trends. We're not afraid to throw these trends to the side when we see something that seems mispriced. And I think this seems mispriced. So we'll start with the offensive positional group comparison. On one side with the Ravens, you have Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, and Deontay Johnson, who are all players I'd say are pretty good at football. They're pretty. That's pretty awesome, like skill unit to have. Versus the Steelers offense that's rolling out Russell Wilson, like 50-year-old Russell Wilson, a banged up Najee Harris, who probably wasn't very good in the first place. George Pickens, a bit of a diva, but he's talented. Van Jefferson at the wide receiver too, and the Muth. So at least if we're looking at like what these skill positions are, it's not even close to me from a talent perspective. That's a massive edge to the Ravens, Todd Monken and that offense versus what Arthur Smith has going. The Ravens are number one in the league by far in rush defense, and they're not so good against the pass. When you can beat the Ravens, the way the Ravens have been beaten by other teams and other teams have gotten close to covering or beating them at the end of games is through the air. So I don't think a banged up, slow Najee Harris is going to be able to be the trend breaker here. So if the Steelers want to stay competitive and keep up with this Ravens high flying offense, it's going to be on Russ's shoulders. And we honestly do not think he can keep up. I still think this whole Russ thing is complete fool's gold. I mean, I saw a stat this week that Russ, he already has 6 touchdowns as the starter of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's one less than Kenny Pickett had all of last year. Does that mean that Russ is like back to old Seattle Russ? I heard Colin Cowherd today say that Russ is back to old Seattle Russ. I do not think that's the case. I mean, unless you want to just completely sweep the 2 years in Denver under the rug, I've seen what Russ is now. It's not what he used to be. When you get him off of his spot, he cannot scramble anymore and get out of it. So far, he's had success with like these deep passes, right? These deep throws to George Pickens, the deep ball to Mike Williams to win the game against the Redskins. So, I mean, you don't lose your touch when you get older, right? But there's so many other things about his game that I just don't think he's the same guy. Like, I don't think he's going to keep up. I mean, Kyle Hamilton's going to be out for the Ravens. That's a pretty massive deal in the secondary. I think that he's probably the biggest playmaker on that unit, but even still, like, do you think Russ is going to have a 300-yard game and throw for 4 touchdowns here? Because I seriously think that's probably what is going to be needed to keep this within the 3 point margin, even. I think the Ravens probably put up like 35 points, I think is a good guess. The Steelers' defense by the numbers, I wanted to take a look at this. They're eighth in yards allowed, 19th against the pass, and fourth against the run. So Alex Highsmith went down last week with an injury. I don't think he's going to be in the game. But are the Steelers like they're fourth against the run? Are they going to be able to stuff Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry? I think it's a fair question to ask, right? Because one of the stats that I love to bring up whenever I bet the Ravens against an NFC team is how he has like a 22-1 career record against the NFC teams. And I think a large portion of the reason that is a thing is because these other teams don't get to see Lamar Jackson enough and like they aren't familiar with like what he brings to the table. This Steelers team definitely is going to they've seen Lamar enough. I think that if anyone's going to come up with a good plan to try and keep him in the pocket and contain him, it will be the Steelers. But now you add Derrick Henry to the mix, like that's a huge lift to stop those two. And if you're stopping those two, like how much are you committing to that and giving up in the passing game? Because now you have Zay Flowers on the outside, you have Deontay Johnson on the outside. You just have game breakers, and Lamar's playing really good football too, not just as a runner but as a passer as well. So I mean, to me, it's like I think the Steelers they have a good defense, right? I think they'll be able to slow them down in some respects. They'll be able to make some plays. I don't think the Ravens are just going to march down the field on will against them, but I just think they have too many moving pieces at this point for the Steelers to be able to completely shut down. Then we'll close on this like -3. It's an incredibly low number for the talent discrepancy between these two teams. I think that part of the reason the number is where it is there's like a ton of historical trends about home divisional dogs, Mike Tomlin as an underdog, AFC North underdogs, right? Like, so I think that that's kind of baked into the spread here, and that's not at all indicative of like what the talent is on the field. So I think that there's really some good value here. We're not even getting the wrong side of the hook, right? All we need is a field goal to push any more than that, and it's a win. Like, I'm not afraid to fade the public here. Yanni wasn't afraid to fade the public here. Neither should you. That this Tomlin dark black magic is not real. There is no way the Steelers team is where the market thinks it is right now. I refuse to believe it. But I mean, I've lost a couple of Steelers bets this year, but it's not going to stop me from making the prognostication I think is truly right about this football team. They're not 3 points. They're not only 3 points worse than the Ravens. They're a touchdown or multiple scores worse than the Ravens. Ravens -3. And then I didn't really touch the under very much, Yanni. So what's your take on the under?
So there's an old adage just in the in the betting community in general, and it's when the Ravens and the Steelers play, bet the under. I remember, I think it was like during the Big Ben transitional era, and then with Pickett last year, dude, the over unders on these games were like 38 or 41. Was like the range that these games were usually set into. When you get up into like the 48, 49, 50 range, I feel like you're kind of projecting it to be an offensive shootout. Um, I understand that the Ravens are on pace to allow 5,000 yards defensively this year, which is pretty out of character for them. But I also think the two Bengals games really sway that, right? And when we're talking about a passing attack here, dude, there is a world of difference between Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase going out there and Russell Wilson and Pickens. And I actually think Russell's played really well. He's on pace for like I think it's like 65% completion, over 4,000 yards, 40 touchdowns, 5 picks. Like that's really really good, dude. If you're on that pace, that's fantastic. So to me, that's actually what I'm worried. The thing I'm most worried about with betting the under is like that Russell Wilson and Pickens really do get going. I don't see them being able to run the ball. I see both teams being completely happy to have 14 play, 8, 9 minute drives where they play ball control, right? And they both kind of are built to do that. So I like it to be a low play count, very fast game. I feel like it's going to be one of those games where halftime hits really fast and the end of the game hits really fast. That's my thinking on the under. For the spread, I mean, yeah, I'm like a little nervous. You're taking 3 points on the road against Tomlin, divisional game, and I feel like when specifically with the AFC North when they play, it seems like records don't matter. Maybe more so than any division in the league. Like it feels like records and talent don't matter. I mean, I remember watching brawls again with Mason Rudolph going against the Browns, like and doing pretty well. I don't know. You had the what was it called? What did they name it? The Rumble in Cincinnati or whatever. That play on the 1 yard line where the strip fumble in the playoffs got run back 99 yards. Like you just have weird stuff. I think that was with Tyler Huntley at quarterback. Um, you just have weird stuff between this division. So I do. I mean, to me, I do think there's like a concern there. Sure. I'm just willing to bet on what I consider to be like one of the 5 or 6 most impactful players in the history of football in Lamar Jackson, and probably one of the 10 or 12 best running backs in the history of football in Derrick Henry. I'll take that bet over what may or may not be a still living Russell Wilson. I'm hesitant to say it's Russell. You just don't know. Like, I called him the ghost of Russell Wilson when he signed with the Steelers. And he has the most expensive body in the history of the NFL. And I mean, like, literally body. He spends $1 million a year on his body and has for like 8 or 9 years. He has like a 10 or $12 million body. That's what he's invested in his physical body. That's so to me, right? The drop off was actually weirder. The drop off is weirder than saying he might be back, because the drop off was so inexplicable to me. And if you want to say that like Nathaniel Hackett's horrible and Sean Payton didn't fit his system, maybe. I mean, maybe. I'm not saying it's not possible. Again, $12 million is a lot to spend on your body, man. That's like a real investment he made. I did not expect him to drop off till he was 37, 38, 39. So I think there's a world in which he has more 35 touchdown seasons in him. I don't know that. I'm hesitant to say that. I think this week we're going to get our answers about exactly what Russ is, exactly what the Steelers are. If you beat the Ravens and you take a 2-game lead in your division, like, you're a legitimate team. I'm betting they're not. Just like Ted said, I'm betting they're not here, and that's why I'm taking the bet. I'm so betting they're not that I'm parlaying it with the under, betting that they're not going to be able to really score here. But we'll see. I do. I mean, I'm willing to have a very different conversation about both Russell and the Steelers depending on how this game goes.
So I want to challenge one thing that you said, and I think it may help your case for the under. I'm not sure, right? So you were talking about how the Steelers like are gonna want to try and play ball control, and that might shorten the game. But I mean, if they can't run the ball, right? Because I don't think Najee's going to have success here. Like, I really think the Ravens are going to stuff him. I think under 50 yards rushing is definitely within the range of outcomes. And Russ is making all his hay on like these long like moon ball passes, right? Like, to me it would be more likely if the Steelers score, it's on a broken play in the secondary where Pickens gets loose versus like Russ dissecting them. You know what I mean? Like, do you think Russ is going to be able to sit in the pocket and like play like Sean Payton wanted him to, go like 10 to 15 yards at a time and like pick this Ravens secondary apart? To me, I think he's going to be more going for the big plays. I don't know if they'll be there, right? But I wonder if this will be a heavy, heavy time of possession game in favor of the Ravens, just smashing them in the mouth with Derrick Henry. I don't know. I mean, that may or may not help your case. I think that, right, if you're not moving the chains and you're counting on like moon balls, if they're not there, the Steelers would certainly be under expectation in my mind, and 48 and a half is a massive number. Who knows though?
I don't even think it's like, I think you're going to see a lot of drives from them where it's like 3 yards in a cloud of dust, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, first down. They do that 2 more times, get to the 48-yard line, and then get stopped on fourth down and kick the ball. And I think they're going to be happy to do that at times. Like, that's Arthur Smith has run a lot of those types of offenses in his day, right? Of just grind the ball, and maybe we make it, maybe we don't. We trust our defense to get a stop and get the ball back. Lamar has been historically bad against the Steelers. This is his worst matchup in the NFL. And I think we saw last week with the Jaden Daniels matchup, very few teams have a practice squad player that can legitimately get them prepared for this type of matchup. Justin Fields is maybe the only backup quarterback in the
mm,
NFL who can actually go out there and mimic a Lamar Jackson or a Jaden Daniels and do it pretty well. I believe he's actually faster on the ground than Lamar Jackson. So these guys get really good, really quality reps this year against a legitimate practice squad running that type of quarterbacking. And I think it showed last week with Jaden Daniels retrospectively. I wish I had considered that more. So I mean, I think they're going to be totally content if they end up grinding out 2 first downs on like 11 plays and then kick the ball, or however many play, whatever, it'd be 12 plays, and then kick the ball. I think they're going to be totally happy with that, with those kind of drives and just eating off 5 minutes of clock and trusting their defense. I expect a lot of that. Again, the only thing I'm concerned about for both our bets and the over under is if Pickens and Russell really do get it going. And there's like that's not impossible. I don't think so, but I would be surprised if Pickens goes out there and has a 175-yard day and that's what blows it. I'll be surprised, but it's not like outlandish. I think he's looked really good with Russell this year, but I don't think that they're going to like rely on. They're not going to come out, dude, and run an air raid offense this week. There's no way. I think they're going to come out and run as long as humanly possible, run play action off the run screens to the running backs, dump it off to Jalen Warren, that sort of thing, as long as they can.
yeah, I wonder, man, because like I think about it, like I know Arthur Smith like really values the run game. He's one of the best run game coordinators in the NFL from an offensive standpoint, right? But what happens when you run Najee twice and it's like 3rd and 7, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
I think that's gonna be a tough spot for us.
yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see. I think that I would like Pickens this week in fantasy though for sure. I think that if anyone gets home on the Steelers, it's gonna be him in this spot.
Okay, Colts and Jets. This week I did not like the board. I think that starts to happen. You like get in your own head when you're on a cold streak. So as you can see, there's actually not a whole lot of notes here. Again, same thing for the Dolphins. I wish I had more interesting stuff to say about these. This one was pretty straightforward for me. Okay, 55% of the money's on the Colts, 51% of the bets. That's not really a strong consensus either way. It's basically the public going, eh. But to me, you're getting 3.5, so you are getting the best side of the hook here. And look, Anthony Richardson's back, the 2 weeks on the bench. And here's what I'm wondering, right? Is Shane Steichen got kind of panned for a couple things. He's catching some heat right now, both in the media and probably from Colts fans, I would assume. Why wasn't he giving layup throws to Anthony Richardson, those really short routes he was giving Joe Flacco? And why wasn't he calling a rush heavy offense with Anthony Richardson in there? He wasn't really doing what they had shown his first few games. And I wonder if Shane just got a little too in his bag, not going what's going on. Look, you had 2 weeks, okay? Were 2 games where they probably would have won if they just had average quarterback play. I think it was a pretty big mistake to get Anthony Richardson out of there. Anthony Richardson understands, look, what's at stake here is $250 million in cash in your debit account, right? I would hope he's taking it seriously at this point. If he's not, he's, a lost cause. I don't think he is. He is still younger than I think every quarterback in this draft class, he is younger than. So look, he hasn't even started to have a full, season yet. What I'm betting on is that they make some adjustments. They go back to being rush heavy. Jonathan Taylor has been recovering from his high ankle that he tweaked. He didn't really look totally back to me until they gave him like 28 touches the other week, right? This is the 25th ranked rush defense. And I really think they're going to have a very hard time. I would be shocked to see them go out there and stop Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson this week. I would be shocked to see Shane Steichen not call a run heavy game plan for Anthony Richardson. To me, you have to play the hand you're dealt. And in this case, they chose to do this, right? They chose to take a quarterback with a 55% completion percentage in college. They knew exactly what they were getting. He's one of the most inexperienced players ever in the history of the NFL draft, going that high next to our own Trey Lance. You understood when you took that guy that you had to give him time to develop, and you're going to have to tailor the offense to him. I think we see it this week. The Jets cannot stop a nosebleed in the rush game. They can't. And so to me, very straightforward. I'm betting on a bruising, battering rushing attack, and the Jets are just simply not able to keep up. Aaron Rodgers is not what he used to be. Aaron's old, Devontae's sick, Sauce is bitching to the media. I'm actually shocked to see Sauce Gardner, I love as a player. I'm shocked to see him like bitching and moaning to the media. He blew that. He's going back and forth with bettors on social media. When the head coach has to show you tackling videos at this point in the year, and the head coach isn't even a head coach, they fired the head coach. Aaron fired the head coach. I think there's bad vibes all around with the Jets, and I don't think they're there with the Colts. I think the Colts view themselves as a team that's pursuing a wild card spot, and rightly so. We sort of thought the Jets might be, but are they really at this point? Haven't they had enough flops that I think we're kind of questioning them? And yeah, so look, a field goal. They need to lose by a field goal or less to cover or win the game. I like those odds. I'll take it. I know it's an away game. I guess, whatever, but what is it? What does Anthony Richardson need? The indoor passing climate that the Colts provide? Is that paramount to his game? I don't think so. It looks like Pittman Jr. is back this week. Again, I wish I had more technical things to say about this game. I really don't. It's just from like an on-field perspective. I do not think the Jets will be able to stop the rushing attack. And I think just fundamentally in the NFL, if you can't stop the rushing attack, you're at a huge disadvantage. That's really it. I think the Colts defense has played pretty well, like decent enough the last few weeks to keep them in games. They look a lot better than they did to start the season. So yeah. Give me the Colts. Give me Anthony Richardson at +3.5. Ted has accused me falsely of being out on Anthony Richardson this year. I am not out on Anthony Richardson this year. I still like the player. I still love the upside. He just needs the reps. And I would really like to see this week, man, get him some of those read option plays, get him some of those quarterback sweeps and bootlegs. I think you have to do some of that. There's a debate with Shane Steichen not doing that because he can't hit the simple stuff. I don't think it's that bad. I don't think they have a choice this week. I think they need to see if he's got that in him, and hopefully the benching helped him a little bit. So yeah, that's my pick.
Well, I mean, I'll just say that only one of us has 40% roster exposure in fantasy to Anthony Richardson. So
Right.
I'm definitely in on the fella. To speak to your point about not scheming up the easy throws for Anthony Richardson, here's my nuclear take, I guess. Shane Steichen has been, and Anthony Richardson is choosing to throw these monster deep balls. It's insane. Have you watched any of his games this year? Like I was watching him against the Texans, like he would look pretty good at points. He'd hit like a long deep throw, and I feel like he tasted that and he wanted more of that. And he's like, you know what? I'm gonna throw the ball 40 yards down the field three straight times on this drive. And some of the times the Colts get away from like the running game and just go exclusively like Anthony Richardson drop back, throw the ball 50 yards, and let's see what
Yeah.
happens. That seems inexplicable to me. I don't
Yeah.
think that will be the case here. I think especially with Anthony Richardson getting benched for the 2 weeks, right? I think it's going to be like you said, a very rush heavy game plan, which I think is going to play right into the strength of the Colts team here. I love this pick. I absolutely love this pick. The only reason it's not on my board is I found 5 other games that I liked even more than this one, but I love this bet. You're getting the best of the number. I think you're getting the better team at this point, right? You get the starting quarterback coming back off of a break. We saw Bryce Young play better, come back from a break. We saw Will Levis play better after coming back from a multi-week break. I think these young
Yep.
guys sometimes it just helps them, right? I've been hearing talk about Anthony Richardson, like how he was like naive or whatever, right, and wasn't taking things as seriously as he should have. He tapped out of the game against the Texans at a certain point, right? I think
Yep.
that benching, right? Like these are grown men, right? And this is the NFL, and usually like something like a 2 week benching sounds like something a college coach would do to me, right? That wouldn't translate to like professional NFL players. But I think Anthony Richardson is just still so young, right? This actually could be an opportunity for him to kind of reflect and work a little bit harder. I heard he's been in the building at 5:30 every morning ever since his benching. He's going to be ready to go, and I just don't think this Jets team will be ready to stop him. Love that pick.
Just two quick notes about that. One, they should be rushing the ball at between 55 and 60%. Arthur Smith calls the highest percentage of rush plays in the league at 56%. They should be around there. Two, when you and I were Anthony Richardson's age, Eric dove off a couch in your living room in the zoo and snapped his arm in half at 4 in the morning.
That's crazy.
And remember, yeah, and remember Danica. Danica fell through a toilet bowl lid and cut her head open, and I spent 3 hours at the emergency room at 4 in the morning. So that's what you and I were doing at that age. He's being asked to coordinate an NFL team on a playoff run. I'm inclined to say you're allowed to be a little bit stupid at that stage in your life. I'm actually inclined to say you're a remarkable person if those are the issues you're working through at that age. And I think he has a lot of room to grow, dude. He will.
Oh man, that was a trip back right there. Oh.
You remember those two events specifically? Um,
Okay. I'll just go on that forever. That's not for the fans to know though. All right, next one. Chiefs at Bills. I'm taking the Bills -2.5 here. I'm picking against the defending Super Bowl champion, undefeated Kansas City Chiefs for a second time this year. It bit me in the ass the first time, but I feel really good about this one. The over under on the game is 46.5. This is a laugher. 16% of the money is on the Bills against the spread, and 19% of bets are on the Bills against the spread. So this is a massive fade the public spot from old Teddy Boy here. I love this pick though. I liked it even more than the Colts +3.5. Let me just kind of explain why. Well, we'll start like what I'm going against, right? Which is the Pat Mahomes as an underdog trend, which is historically one of the best bets you could possibly make, especially when you're betting money line on an underdog that usually pays over 2 to 1. I have made so much money on betting Pat Mahomes as an underdog in the Super Bowl. It's not funny. Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs are 11-3 straight up as underdogs. Like they kind of break models. They break everything. It's one of the safest bets in the world, and I'm even betting against that at this point. So let me just try to explain myself here. The Chiefs to me have not passed the eye test. Like they don't look the same. Like I get that they are playing winning football. I get that they have the best quarterback in the world. I get that their defense is playing good and they're situationally elite, right? But at a certain point, like all the injuries they've sustained, I think they got to be piling up, right? You lose Rashee Rice for the year. You have Isaiah Pacheco break his leg. You have Hollywood Brown, who, even though he didn't play it down for the Chiefs, he was expected to be on the team. He's out for the year. You're running out like all of the 2017 fantasy all stars and like Travis Kelsey, Kareem Hunt, and DeAndre Hopkins. Those are like your key contributors at this point. Like, so to me, like, I don't know how sustainable that is, especially with the age of these guys. And this team was a blocked field goal away from losing to Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos last week. Like, let's not sweep that under the rug. That was an incredible play by the Chiefs special teams. If they don't make that play, and I think that probably 98% of the time that field goal goes in, the Chiefs just lost to the 5-5 Denver Broncos, you know? So they've looked beatable to me, even though they haven't gone down yet. The way you beat the Buffalo Bills is hammering the ball in the running game. And like I said, Kareem Hunt, he's only been off the street for like 5 weeks at this point. He's filled in pretty well for Isaiah Pacheco, I think. But here's his numbers over the last 3 games. He had 14 carries for 35 yards, 27 carries for 106 yards. That was the game against the Buccaneers on Monday night. And then 21 carries for 59 yards. So can he carry the load here in this one? Like, if you're going up against a team that's defense is tailor made to beat Patrick Mahomes, right? The Bills, they've lost to the Chiefs. I think they're 0-3 in their last 3 playoff games against the Chiefs. They have gotten their ass handed to them by Mahomes so many times. They've built their offense to try and stop him. So they're a little bit undersized. You can run at them. But when you have a guy who's only been off the street for like 5 weeks, right? And he's already getting up there in age, like it seems like his production is kind of falling off. Like, are they going to be able to give him the ball like 20 to 30 times in this game and like ride him to success? Because I think that if they can't, right, they're leaving a huge opportunity about how you beat the Bills on the table, right? So over the past month, the Bills have scored over 30 points in every single game and are averaging around 400 yards a game. And the Chiefs have only scored 30 points like one time this year. So like I said, like this Chiefs defense is really really good, right? Like Steve Spagnuolo, he's a great coordinator. I gotta tip your cap to those guys, right? Like played really really well this year, but are they gonna hold up against Josh Allen and James Cook and company? And if they can't, like, can Mahomes and the old dudes, the 2017 fantasy team, keep up? Like if the Bills score, let's say the Bills get up to 28 to 30 points in this game, do you see the Chiefs offense being able to hang that on the Bills? I mean, I think Mahomes is always liable to just Superman a game, but based on what the production has been this year, I don't think they're going to be able to score at will here. So I think the Chiefs probably in between 17 to 25 points, I think would be fair for them. And this Bills team, that their offense has been on fire. So in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, right? Everything that's measurable about this football game tells you the Bills are more talented and healthy at this point in time. They're playing better, they look better, and they're -2.5 at home. So I only need a field goal to win. For just full disclosure, if this was a playoff game, I'm not playing this. I would never bet against Mahomes in a playoff game at this point. I would have to see it to believe it, like when it really comes crunch time. But in the regular season, I think Josh Allen is 2-1 or something against Mahomes in the last 3 in the regular season. I think this is the spot that the Chiefs finally go down to the Bills here, and this is going to be their Super Bowl. Like, how many times have Mahomes and the Chiefs broken this Bills team's heart, right? Like, they're certainly not going to be overlooking this game. This is a huge spot for them. Get some get back for going home. The Chiefs sending them home in the AFC Championship last year, right? Like, or not AFC Championship, AFC Divisional round. This is going to be really important to them, and I just think they got more dogs right now. Bills -2.5. Give it to me. What do you think, Yanni? Am I stupid for picking against Mahomes as a dog here?
So I would have bet the Bills if I bet on this game. So like that's what I would have taken. And I mean, would I take that? I said, would I say I took a long hard look at it? No, I certainly took a look at it though, and I thought about it. My problem is that on paper, give me the Bills in every sense of the word. But that, I mean, I've said that with 2 Super Bowls where the Niners played Mahomes. Just on paper, they're such a better team. But um, Mahomes is just something else, man. Every era of every sport, there are guys that destroy legacies because they're so great, right? Um, there's just nothing to do, and again, in boxing and the UFC, you'll always say, well, this guy's a champion if this guy didn't exist, right? And in the NBA, if you didn't have the LeBron and Stephen Curry era, how many other guys have rings right now, right? And Tom Brady, how many franchises didn't get their ring in the last 20 or 30 years because Tom Brady exists? And unfortunately, with Mahomes, specifically with the Bills and the 49ers, how much has their legacies been impacted by Mahomes existing? And dude, like right now, I'm just not, and it's crazy because the roster's not great. The offense is not great. The offense is missing their two of their three like main offensive pieces, and every game it looks precarious, and every game they win. So like to me, I looked at it and I said, "Wow, I really think the Bills will beat them here, and I think the Bills will beat them pretty squarely here, and I'm not touching the game." So it's just that weird. Yeah, it's that, dude. It's that. That's what respect is, right? That's what fearing generational gets used way too often, right? In sports nowadays, or the GOAT gets used way too often. But make no mistake about it, dude. That man is generational. That man's a GOAT. Um, and I'm just not comfortable touching games with him involved right now. To your credit, though, you did take the Raiders on the backdoor cover, I believe, at 9.5. And right, it was 9.5, I think,
Yep.
and you hit the 7. Okay. And I love that's a huge balls call. I really like it, man. 81% of the public disagrees with you. I really do respect that, actually. I hope it comes home. I also think like a moderate factor, we'll see. Kincaid being out, I don't think is the biggest deal because Knox is a competent backup. But if Cooper plays or not, I do think that matters. It lets Khalil slide into the slot. It lets Khalil not deal with a true number one corner this week. I think all that does really matter. I'm not sure if Coleman's in or not, so a little bit of a health play. But no, dude, I would
Keon
have bet the
Coleman is
Bills.
out.
He's out. Okay, he's already been ruled out, right?
Mhm.
So okay, yeah, I would have bet the Bills if I had to. I think you have the right side of it. I just would not bet against Mahomes until further notice. I'm just not. I can't do it, dude.
I mean,
It's horrible. It's hard
it's
to
not
say.
just Mahomes to me, right? Like Reed. Andy Reid is also like by far the best coach in the NFL, I think, right? Like Steve Spagnuolo is one of the best at his position. So it's a spooky pick for sure, right? Like I'm picking against three of the absolute best in the NFL at what they do. But sometimes you got to let it rip. I think there's some value here, right? Like I don't know. I think this should be based on the way the Chiefs are playing. It should be like Bills 4 or 5, like at home personally. And I think they're getting the 2.5 just out of the respect for the Chiefs organization. So I think there's some value on the number, but we'll see. I could eat shit again for a second time picking against the Chiefs, but I went out there. I put myself out on a limb and I went for it. All right. Next one's me too. It's the Bengals at the Chargers on Sunday night, and I'm taking the Bengals money line. The over under on this game is 47.5. 91% of the money is on the Bengals against the spread, and 96% of the money is on the Bengals money line. And then 84% of bets are on the Bengals against the spread, and only 58% of bets are on the Bengals money line. So we have a massive 96% of the money are on the Bengals is on the Bengals money line, and 58% of bets are on the Bengals money line. So huge, massive whales are putting a ton of money on the Bengals money line if they like that bet. This is the people that know what they're doing. Give away the point. It is fine to take the extra money. That I don't think that's bitten me once this year. Like I think if I've taken a money line pick, like they've either won or they've just lost straight out, right? It's never been like that exact 1 point situation. I'm telling you guys, when you put, especially when you're putting this in parlays too, because the way a parlay is calculated, like those better odds, like really like boost the payout on a parlay. Just give that 1 point away, especially if it's a 1 point dog. Please, I'm begging you. If it's one thing you remember from this podcast, it's that. But we'll start with Joe Burrow on the Bengals, right? So far on the season, and it blew my mind when I pulled these numbers. Joe has 2,672 yards passing, 24 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. He's absolutely playing at MVP level football right now. And I
Yeah.
think that he probably would be the front runner for MVP if the Bengals weren't a 4-6 football team somehow, right? T. Higgins is off the injury report and he's going to go this week. So all systems are go for this Bengals offense that I think is playing really well. Chase Brown has filled in really well as a full-time back now that Zach Moss is injured. I know, I know they brought in Khalil Herbert to take some of the load off Chase Brown here, but I think the offense adds an extra dynamic to it when you have I'm not going to say elite, but a very good running back there, an entirely capable running back. The Bengals are 4-6 and just fighting for their life right now in the wild card race. The AFC, it's way different than the NFC right now. The NFC at 4-6, you're almost dead already. But the way the AFC is shaken out, there's a lot of these teams that it's looking like 9 or 10 wins might get you in here. And the Bengals have to think that with the talent on their roster, they can make a run at the end of the year, especially given their schedule. So they've looked sleepy at points this year. Like this is one thing that me and Yanni have harped on over and over again, right? This Bengals team, like I have a hard time betting them when they're laying big numbers against bad teams because a lot of times it feels like they play down to their competition, right? Or like when they played the Browns, for example, like I think that was like a 4 point game or something. If you look at like I think Deshaun Watson was still playing back then. Like if you look at the talent difference between those two teams, like the Bengals should have been like 14-point favorites. They should have blown them out, but it's like a one score game. But I really think that in this spot where they're fighting for their fucking lives in a standalone game on Sunday night, they're going to be ready to roll. These best Bengals performances on the year have come against the Ravens twice, have come against the Chiefs in these big spots. This is a huge spot for this team. So I think we're going to get good Joe Burrow and a good Bengals performance. Um, the Bengals rush defense has quietly been good the past month. This is funny because like I've said this about the Bengals multiple times this year that they have a bad defense and that's the reason they're losing games, but they've actually done pretty well on the ground over the past month at least. They've held 3 of 4 opponents, one of which includes the Ravens and Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, under 100 yards total team rushing. So I think they're going to be able to stop Greg Roman's rush heavy concepts and J.K. Dobbins here, which is really the core of what this new Jim Harbaugh and Chargers team wants to do, right? So when I look at the way the Bengals are playing on offense, and I look at the fact that I think that they'll have some success here slowing down the rushing game. I think the Bengals are going to score and do a good enough job of stopping the run. So it's profiling to me like a game where if the Chargers want to keep up with the Bengals, right? So I think the Bengals are putting up points here. It's going to be up to Justin Herbert, Lad McConkey and company to like have to like throw the ball to keep up. To me, this is like a Justin Herbert. If we want to win or be competitive in this game, if you're the Chargers, he probably has to have a 300-yard, 2 to 3 touchdown performance at a minimum. I think, and I just think they're undertooled on offense right now. I love Justin Herbert. I love Jim Harbaugh. I like Glad McConkey. I'm actually starting him in fantasy this week. I have one roster. I've had him on the bench every single week this year. Finally rolling him out in this spot because I think it's a really good one for him. But I just think that this Chargers team is probably a draft or two away from being where they need to be offensively, at least in the pass game. I wouldn't. I'd like to see them get a better running back too, personally. But yeah, I just think that if the Bengals can kind of at least keep this rushing game from going too crazy from the Chargers, they're gonna like be playing the type of ball game they want to be on. They want to be playing in here. So just based on the talent of the rosters, right? I'm just shocked the Chargers are favorites in this spot. Like I think that there's a lot of respect being given to Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh as a head coach quarterback combination, right? I think that the Chargers they've taken care of business and done what they needed to do in spots and the Bengals just have not done that, right? So I think all of that was baked into this 1.5 point Chargers favorite here. But to me, the Bengals are like the superior team, like as far as talent is concerned. So like I said, I get that the Bengals have been disappointing, but I think this is going to be a turning point for their season. I think the Bengals are going to make the playoffs. Personally, it would be a really disappointing thing to me personally if like Joe Burrow and this Bengals team like on what could be an MVP season, didn't even make the playoffs. So I'm giving away the 1.5 points. It pays out over 2 to 1. And even though I'm doing that and I'm betting the money line, I still think I'm getting value on the number. I think this should be like Bengals -2.5, Bengals -3 if we're being realistic here. So that's why I'm in on it. Bengals money line. What do you think, Yanni?
Yeah, man, I really I love Joe Burrow. I love him so much, right? You and I have gone. We always will occasionally check in on our quarterback rankings, our power rankings of starting quarterbacks, and I've like always had Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert kind of stuck together in power rankings. I know people dropped Herbert off, but to me, it looks like both of these guys have recovered from their injuries and they're starting to kind of play at their pinnacle. This is like when we should start seeing these guys peak and then sort of plateau into what their prime is going to be. And I think we've really seen that with both guys. I think you're spot on about the severe difference in talent. Joe Burrow's throwing to what is the best wide receiver in football. And if he keeps this up, dude, if Jamar Chase stays healthy and keeps up the crazy like production he's on, might end up being one of the best receivers to have played the game. I think you got a great pick. Again, I looked at this one. I'm not even sure what turned me off to it. I think it's just that the Chargers do have a top 10 defense and the Bengals have looked wonky at times. So it was just weird enough for me where and then like, dude, watching the Bengals melt down and give up whatever it was, like 250 yards in 20 minutes of gameplay against the Ravens was pretty jarring. But this isn't the Ravens. Yeah, so I did not have a feeling about the game when I looked. I said, oh, I think the Bengals win, but if I don't really think anything about it, I'm not comfortable betting it. I would guess you got them at like plus 110 or maybe like plus 108 or plus 112, something like that. So you got a really good number on it.
Yeah, it was plus
um
108.
yeah, plus 108. Yeah, and then yeah, Joe Burrow's playing MVP. T Higgins is back. T Higgins was actually leading the league team in first read target share when he was out there before he got hurt. So I do think that actually really matters. Yeah, I think it's going to come home for you. It was just weird enough to me, dude. The Chargers defense has had spots this year where they have really shined, like in a big way.
Mhm.
And that is my only possible hesitation with the game is just the Chargers defense playing the way that they have and the Bengals playing down to competition. And I don't know, but I do think the Bengals win this. I do think they make it to the playoffs, and yeah, I think you're on the right side.
All right, last one, and we're both on this. I talked twice in a row, though. You want to take it?
Yeah, sure. Texans minus 7.5 at the Cowboys. 92% of the money on the Texans, 68% of the bets. So that is a sizable big money lean in this one. This is our second consensus of the week. Nico Collins is back officially off the injury report. And John Mechie popped a little bit, okay? He was leading the NFL in receiving. He was on pace to break the NFL receiving record this year before he got hurt. Clearly, him and CJ have something really special. They locked him in. I think they got him at $24 million a year, by the way, which is just absolutely fantastic work from the front office. Look, in my opinion, again, maybe I'm being a little bullish or a little too. This is a top 3 receiver in football, Nico Collins. I really, really love the player, and that cannot be overstated enough. The difference that makes for the team. The Texans have to be a little bit salty about some of the losses they've picked up here recently, feeling like they're not hitting their potential. I don't think they're going to be cool about this. I don't see the absolute disaster of the Cowboys without Dak Prescott and a banged up defense being able to stop anything. Their kicker is the premier part of their roster right now, by the way. That is the featured player on the Cowboys. If you were to say what marquee players are they rolling out there, I know they have CeeDee Lamb, but he's a little less marquee without Dak Prescott. It is probably their kicker is toward the top of the NFL right now. Joe Mixon is going against the 31st ranked rushing defense in the NFL. They'll play up Micah being back, but he's not a run stopper. I cannot imagine the work Joe Mixon is about to give these Cowboys. It's going to seem unethical. I might feel uncomfortable watching the game. I think it's on that level. Uh, it's a 7.5 here. You never like laying 7.5 ever. But look at the way the Texans just played the Lions on defense. They are playing Cooper Rush and Rico Dowdle. So the Texans are going from Jared Goff and Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams and Sam Laporta and Gibbs and Monty to Dowdle, Cooper Rush, and Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper's good, but let's be serious here, right? And then will the ghost of Mike Tyson be haunting Jerry World? We wrote this before the fight, which I was morally offended by that fight because of what I was expecting to happen here on the outcome. Bad vibes in the building, post nut clarity after Jerry Jones's $18 million windfall from the event. Who knows what he nets from that? I would imagine $2 or $3 million, but that's a hell of a payment for a day. To me, it seemed like he was happy as a clam because the Cowboys are done at this point. I look, you're taking what I think is still one of the best teams in football, what I think is still one of the best quarterbacks in football. I'm seeing like this creeping sentiment that CJ Stroud might not be an elite quarterback. Look, man, not everyone is Brock Purdy. Not everyone is Brock Purdy where you get in the NFL and you never decline. It is very rare that you see a player that just gets in the NFL and starts slapping people around for 3 seasons straight winning playoff games. That's not everyone does that. You have a sophomore slump. CJ Stroud's hitting his little sophomore slump, but look, he lost at points this year. Joe Mixon, Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs. Dude, those aren't like 3 random guys that he's had in and out of his lineup. Those are massive, like franchise altering players to have on the field or not. And this is the most healthy offense he's going to have. And actually, I think with the way John Mechie sort of broke out, I would expect to see more of him this week. I think they moved Tank Dell back to the slot. I feel great about the Texans offense rest of the season. If we're going to get discounts like this, where they're not on blowout alert against damaged and decimated rosters like the Cowboys, I will continue to hammer them all the way here. Would I prefer it if it was 6.5 or 7? Of course I would. That's a much more friendly number. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing at 28-7 or 28-10, something like that.
Yeah, this is my favorite play of the week. I put 5-star play.
Yeah.
We're giving
Yeah.
you guys a 5-star play. This is by far my favorite number of the week. Listen, man, I get that CJ hasn't had the best like last month or whatever, but I think a lot of that is probably Nico being out, right? Like I was slow. I was slow to the Nico Collins party. I'm not probably as bullish on him. I'm not sure if he's top 3, but I think that the difference that it makes to have like your favorite guy be in the lineup, right, is huge for a young quarterback. And from what I've seen from this Texans team in CJ Stroud, Nico Collins is his go-to guy. When he's scrambling, when he's running around and looking for someone to like bust off and like make their own play, it's Nico doing that. It's not anyone else. So I love this spot for the Texans offense. I think it's a get right spot where they kind of take out some anger here on the poor, destitute Cowboys. I'm kind of hoping we see some Trey Lance. Like if it's 35-7 at halftime, I want to see Trey Lance get some run. Um, but yeah, I guess that's all I have on that. That's gonna do it for us. If you made it through the whole video, thank you. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell. It helps the channel out. Question for the audience. You got one, Yanni, or do you want me to come up with one?
It was announced on the broadcast for the Jake Paul event today that they want to do NBA versus NFL boxing for recently retired players. Gronk and Shaq discussed headlining a card against each other. Who is a good NFL versus NBA matchup of recently retired players? Who would you guys like to see get in there? Immediately, I thought of James Harrison. If you guys have seen that guy recently, I would love to see James Harrison box. I know Le'Veon Bell has been boxing a lot lately. He's actually been calling out Jake Paul, but he looked like horrible when he boxed. I'd like to see. I'm curious, man. I'm curious. I'd like to see some of those guys. Like, does a Draymond Green, would he be willing to get in there when it's all said and done and do a boxing match? I think it'd be kind of cool. I want to know though, who would you guys like to see box recently retired? Ted thinks they were just bullshitting on there. I actually think they're going to do it. Shaq has been one of the most successful businessmen in the history of athletes. I think he's serious when he says he wants to try to get some matches going. I'm curious who you guys would like to see get in the ring or who you think's realistic.
I want to see Pat McAfee versus JJ Redick.
Dude, they might do something. That's what's
yeah.
Yeah, dude. Like, I don't even know. I'm trying to think of like who were these big characters or these loud. Chad Ochocinco might take a fight, maybe. Terrell Owens might take a fight. Like I know he did some boxing, like one of those kind of dudes. I don't know, dude. It'd be kind of interesting. I would watch.
Seeing T.O. knock out Draymond would make my day. I would be so happy.
Oh my God, the possibilities are, or like guys that have real beef, right? Like, imagine Cortland Finnegan and Andre Johnson agreed to get in there and do an old man boxing match, or like Marshawn Lattimore and Mike Evans. When it's all said and done, get in there and do it. Dude, the one that I always thought would make serious money because they're a little on the field thing, Draymond versus LeBron. If they were ever willing to do a box, dude, I look, it's not real boxing, but I'd watch it. I'll watch former pros beat up each other. Absolutely. Yeah. So
then yeah, that's gonna do it for us. But let us know in the comments who you'd like to see box, and we'll see you guys next week.
Ray Rice versus wife. Yeah, okay, see you guys. Thank you.